Welcome to The Brass Junkies, a podcast from the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network featuring interviews with the world's greatest brass players by two thoroughly average ones, Lance LaDuke and myself, Andrew Hitz. Today's episode features trombonist Harry Waters. Harry tells us about breaking into the audition space to practice the night before his successful U.S. Army Band audition, and about how his first reaction in any crisis is always to go practice. He also talks about living and gigging in New Orleans 7 nights a week, and about how he lost all of his clothes once in Laughlin, Nevada. He tells us all about it next. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of The Brass Junkies. I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined by my co-host, Lance LaDuke. Lance, how are you doing? Not like a superficial, but like on a real, genuine, human level. How are you doing today?
Good.
That might be... We have driven probably 100,000 miles together in the same vehicle, just the two of us. That might be the deepest conversation we've ever had. And that is why we're still friends. Mm-hmm. All right, so we have a complete nut job for a guest for this episode. But before we introduce that nut job, I did want to ask you if you could go to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review and all that good stuff. A bunch of you already have, and we are very, very, very appreciative of that. And we've seen some of you sharing on social media, the episodes or just the podcast in general. And it's very much appreciated. It's a lot of work making these things happen. And so it's great to get such great feedback, and it's really awesome to see people sharing it with other people that they think might be enjoying it. So, all right, enough of the thank yous and of the plugs. Now let's get to our nut job of the week. Today's nut job is a trombone player, and he is a member of the United States Army, and his name is Harry Waters. How are you doing today, Harry?
Fabulously, guys. How are you today?
We're doing great. So,
good.
Lance is good. Yeah. The first we have to tell the story of Harry's first time on the Brass Junkies.
Oh my!
Listeners, do you remember that episode?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. So,
oh no.
So Harry was scheduled for, this was a couple of months ago, was scheduled for the 10:30 a.m. slot or whatever, and so we get a call from him, like we talked to him at like 10:33, and he's like, I'm about to go on base, so I need to call you back. And so we said, okay. So then 5 minutes later, he gets through the checkpoint at Fort Myer, and then he's on base, and then he's talking to us, but then all of a sudden his kids are like screaming in the background even though he's at work, and then he's like saying, he's walking through Brooker Hall, and he's like saying hello to people, and he's telling people that he's on a podcast, and then we end up in like the steam room. You can't make this up, and there's like, you can hear people steaming uniforms in the background, and so it's just
yes.
and then this
was right before a job at the White House, so it was a frenetic level of activity.
Yeah, it was about a 14-minute episode, and then he was like, "Okay, I'm really sorry, I got to go," and then that was the end of it. And then Lance and I just, I think the conversation afterwards, we could recreate it. I think I spoke first. I said, "Dude,
what just happened?" You're eating a granola bar.
That's right. He was eating a granola bar in the steam room, and yes, there was
Pope showed up.
And there was Offspring.
Yeah,
you know what else was kind of funny?
Sincere apologies, guys.
As crazy as that was, there was like a hilarious and awesome explanation of how to approach learning jazz. Like there was like this super highly concentrated.
That's right.
Like we took 3 hours of content and we distilled it down to 15 minutes. And So maybe we'll have an opportunity to get a more...
I forgot about that. Yeah, it was just complete and utter, just like trademark Harry Waters chaos, and like surrounded by just absolute gems of pedagogy. And it was... I think it was the steam room. Oh, yeah, man. Jazzsteaming.org. You should get that URL, and you should
.gov. He's in the
.gov. Oh, that's right. .gov.
Well, maybe not for long.
That's a story for another podcast.
Yes, it is.
Or stories for another podcast. So, Harry, why don't you tell the beautiful people in the audience what you do for the U.S. Army, other than the infantry stuff that you regularly do?
Well, if they send the trombones in, we're all doomed. So my job is I'm a trombonist in the United States Army Blues Jazz Ensemble. Love it. I feel very, very fortunate. I've been in the Army band for, going on 22 years now. So it's been a very good run. And I feel like I've won the lottery. But, guys, I got to tell you, what you are doing is incredible. And you're doing a great service to the music world, the brass world in particular. And you're making the world a better place. So I salute you.
Thank you. Well, and you're making the world a safer place, Harry.
Yes, I'm keeping jazz safe for democracy.
That's right. We forgive you, man. You don't have to kiss up. It's all good. And you know there's no pay. We're not paying you, right? You knew that?
I got to go. See you.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's why I think he figured that out, and he was like, I'm going to take these dudes to the steam room. Yeah. I'll teach him.
Harry, where are you from?
Well,
wow.
Alabama. Huntsville, Alabama. And actually, I'm very proud of that fact. My dad was a NASA engineer, worked at Marshall Space Flight Center, and my mom is still living down there. She has her own radio show on WLRH Public Radio in the mornings. It's called Morning Blend, and you can hear her at least twice a week, I believe starting at 9 a.m. Central Time. So WLRH.org.
I'm writing that down right now. I'll put it in the.
I don't think I'm making this up. I think I was on her show once.
I'm sure you were.
Yeah,
I'm sure you were.
I think I was too.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that both you and I were. But then,
she
I was
interviewed you when Boston Brass came to town.
When we were there with
Civic Center.
Yeah, we were there with Amani. I think with the Amani Winds.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was you, me, and Jeff who were all on, if I remember correctly.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
It's better playing with the Yamani Winds rather than with Yanni, I think.
Well, the pay is better with you.
Yeah. But I know that Mom really enjoyed talking with you guys. And my brother teaches down there in Huntsville. He's the jazz ensemble director at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. Mm-hmm. Ken Waters, tremendous trumpeter. He's the one with the talent in the family. An amazing creative force. And he also is a fabulous composer.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Has he written a lot of stuff for the two of you guys? I mean, you guys had the Waters. What was the name of that?
We have 3 Waters Brothers CDs out on Summit Records.
You have. It's not 3 Waters Brothers. You have.
Well,
I did the same thing. I was like, wait, who's the third? Frank?
I let the other brother. I keep him in the trunk. Trunk of the car.
Oh, jeez.
Harry, and what was the third one's name?
He's our shortstop, I think. Who? Yeah.
Who? Okay, got it. Yeah. Who Waters? What's who play?
That sounds like What Does the Fox Say?
That's it. He's an accomplished accordionist.
Well, who isn't?
No, who is?
Lance, I'll bet you play a mean accordion.
I wish. That's on the list. No.
Are you guys speaking
I only
in code?
play friendly ones. Thank you very much. These are tip your waiters. Okay, so let's try and regroup here. So, Harry, you started on the trombone at what age? Or did
at the age of 10 in State College, Pennsylvania. My first trombone teacher was Mr. Dreibelbus.
Wait. Right, we already need to pause.
Hey, hold on. That's not next to Alabama.
Yeah, that's right. That's quite a commute to go visit Mr. Drabelbus. Oh, goodness.
You're making me cry. I'm crying here, literally.
It's the steam, man. It's the steam.
So how is it that... And by the way, my father was a rocket scientist. That's a thing that not a lot of people can say.
Yes.
So... Wait,
So what happened? Do we want to unpack that first, or do we want?
Well, my dad was working on his master's. He took a 1-year sabbatical from NASA, and he took us up to State College, Pennsylvania. He was working on his master's in man-environment relations. And during that time, my parents brought back a trombone from a garage sale, and they said, "Okay, Harry, you're going to play this." And so I joined the Fairmount Elementary School band and took lessons with Mr. Dribelbus in the basement of Fairmount School.
And is Ken older or younger than you?
He is 2 years younger.
Okay, so did he take any lessons from Mr. Dribelbus as well?
No.
You guys were just there for 1 year. So your period of time was with Mr. Dribelbus.
Mr. Dribelbus.
Dribelbus. Sorry.
Yes.
That's even better.
What's his first name? Do you know?
Mr.
Ezekiel. Zachariah Dribelbus.
He's probably still teaching up in State College.
I feel bad. I'm sorry, Mr. Dribelbus, if you are and you're listening.
He was a tremendous teacher.
If he's a Patreon guy, he's going to cancel his donation.
What made him wonderful?
Well, he was extremely encouraging and quite positive the whole time. And if it hadn't been for him, I wouldn't be talking to you guys right now. So thank you, Mr. Dribelbus.
What did you? So you spent? Did you play? You played in the elementary school band, and you took lessons from him. And so 10 is how old? What grade is that?
That was fourth grade. That's when you could start in Pennsylvania, and then we went right back down to Huntsville, Alabama, and started playing in the Mountain Gap Middle School band with Barry Bicknell, the band director, and Jim Sparks was my trombone teacher. A tremendous influence. In high school, and Dave Ward, another trombone, or not, he was our head band director at Grissom High School. But again, the backdrop is my brother Ken and I had a lot of encouragement from my folks. Harry Waters, number 3, and Judy Waters, Harry and Judy Waters. And my dad was a drummer, and my mom still is a French hornist. She played for many years in the Huntsville Symphony, which is a very good orchestra.
When did I think it would be fair to say that most people who are familiar with your playing are familiar with your jazz playing, and so when did that come about? When did you start developing your jazz chops or going in that direction?
Well, pretty much from the beginning, Lance, because I would play along with the Beatles' White Album, all the Chicago albums, mostly just playing by ear. And I found that to be tremendously beneficial because I'm dyslexic. I'm a terrible sight reader. So it was so much more fun just to get the horn out and play along with the music that I loved. And I naturally gravitated in that direction right from the beginning.
Let's talk about the dyslexia for a second, which is funny that I screwed up. Did that impact your grades? I mean, my brother has a slight dyslexic tendency, and one of the things my folks did was they threw comic books at him, not literally, but gave him a bunch of comic books. Well, probably both literally. But were you aware of the fact that you had this situation?
No, I only discovered that later in life. I wish I had known about it much earlier. But like your brother,
I wonder. I mean, at that point, do you wonder would you have continued playing by ear as much? I mean, this sounds like the playing by ear came out. You had this desire to play, and reading music was frustrating, but playing it was incredibly fun.
It was a natural coping mechanism, and yes, it was so much more fun just to pick the horn up and play. But also, it opened my ears up in ways that probably wouldn't have been available to me had I stuck to the notes on the page. It forced me to think about what was going on in the bass line, how many measures there were in a chorus, what the key was of a particular tune. learning the melody. Trombone players are notoriously bad for learning melodies because we don't really have to learn melodies. That we leave that up to the trumpeters. So I just became much more aware of what was happening within a song, within a piece of music. And I know darn well if I was just wedded to the notes on the page, I would have had tunnel vision.
Huh. Boy, that's really interesting. I wonder, is there a correlation there? I mean, is this a phenomenon?
I don't know. It probably warrants some study, to be honest.
What about your brother? Is he dyslexic?
Not at all. Not at all. He's his brain works so creatively, though. He was composing from the very, very beginning. In 3rd grade, he was taking piano lessons, and he came up with a piece of music, and he showed my mom, my dad, and then came up to me, and I looked at the title. The title was Rhapsody for a Dead Cat.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's gone on and on since then. Some of his other titles are Nuns with Guitars. Another one that he actually recorded was Clowns with Lockjaw.
How are we only 15 minutes into this interview?
When did you guys start doing gigs together as the Waters brothers, as the 3 Waters brothers?
Oh, probably. I was in 9th grade and Ken was in 7th. We got a whole bunch of sheet music, Dixieland-style sheet music, from my granddad, Humphrey, who was a very talented musician / TV radio store owner from, where was that? Reynoldsville, Pennsylvania. And he would gig every night and worked in his shop during the day, and they lived upstairs above the shop. But he gave us ream after ream of music, and it was extremely beneficial to us. It got us started in that.
So then, let's at the rate we're going, we're going to make it to high school here in another 45 minutes. But
we can jump.
Let's jump over that. You go to college where?
North Texas for undergraduate.
And how did you decide that was where you wanted to go?
Oh, well, I went to a music camp at UTC, University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, and they had one of the recent graduates from there, Bill Yeager, trombonist, tremendous clinician, great musician. And he just said, man, if you're serious, if you want to be taken seriously, you need to go to a place where the competition is fierce but also very positive. And my experience in North Texas was just that. So I lobbied my parents, and they were very supportive, and Ken went there as well, and it worked out very, very well for both of us.
Who were the biggest influences while you were there?
At North Texas, well, my teacher was Rich Madison. I think you probably heard of him.
I have.
A little bit.
Yeah. And he was fantastic. Vern Kagarice recently passed away, tremendous loss. Dan Hurley and Neil Slater. And Neil Slater was very helpful with getting me the audition with the Dukes of Dixieland right before I graduated, and it all worked out.
So, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask if you could tell us about your time with the Dukes of Dixieland, both recording and touring, right?
Well, it was a great learning experience, Andrew, because the audition itself boiled down to playing with the band in their club. Maybe 3 tunes, but they gave us 12 tunes to learn, traditional jazz tunes. I hate the term Dixieland, but so I learned the 12 tunes, drove down to New Orleans, and it was between myself and a couple other guys, and I was fortunate enough to have gotten the job. But once I started, there was a 3-month trial period, and during that trial period, if you didn't cut the mustard, and if you weren't able to play at the same level as everyone else, they were going to let you go. So my main job during that 3-month period was to try and ramp up my skills as fast as possible. Because even though I came in knowing 12 traditional jazz tunes, that's not nearly enough. I hear stuff.
Yeah, someone's getting paged.
That's all right.
So do you had played a bunch of, all through your undergrad, you were playing jazz.
I was playing jazz, yes, and but it was not necessarily a traditional jazz style. We were doing normal, real book tunes and Song for My Father, Cherokee, Giant Steps. But
what year is this? When were you at North Texas?
I graduated in 1985.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
we're about the same age. You're a little. No, you're much older than me. Is what I meant.
Oh, I know. You're just a spring chicken. But during that 3-month trial period, I would record every night and then do harmonic analysis and write it all out during the day. So
okay, wait. This is awesome, and this is what I want to get into. So when you tell me what you mean by that specifically. So you go to this gig and you play, like you show up at what time? And you're not really rehearsing with these guys, are you?
No. They just throw me in, and I think that's the most normal thing in the world. That's my first full-time job, signed a contract, and we played from 9 to 1 every night, 3 1-hour sets plus the breaks.
So you're getting to the gig about what time?
I get there around 8:30, and it's 309 Bourbon Street, right in the middle of all the madness.
And what's the instrumentation for anybody who's not familiar with traditional jazz?
Trumpet, clarinet / saxophone, trombone, tuba, piano, and drums. And these guys knew thousands and thousands of tunes. Even at the end of my 4-year tenure with them, I was still learning new songs from guys who had been in there that long.
What's the median age? I mean, how old are these guys? I mean, are you like way younger than everybody, or?
Oh, decades. Everyone else was in their 50s and 60s, and I was in my early 20s. So I was terrified, absolutely terrified about, I wanted to be able to do a good job. I certainly didn't want to go home with my tail between my legs. So right. I thought, well, the only thing I can do is just try and get better really fast. Mm-hmm. So I had a Walkman, a recordable Walkman back in the day, with a cassette tape. And I always made sure, and here's the thing, guys, if you're learning tunes, don't be the first one to take a solo. Let somebody else take the first solo. And while you're smiling to the audience or acting like you're interacting with the audience, in reality, you're really listening to what's going on. What's the form? Is it AABA? Is it binary? Is it ABC form? What's the starting chord of the bridge? What's the opening note of the A section in the melody? Is the A2 section different harmonically than the A1 section? And if so, in what subtle ways? So you're doing all that, and it's fast-firing neurons, a lot of data analysis in real time. And then, when it's time for your solo, you've already been through one pass at least. Mm-hmm. So you're not flying blind. But I would do a lot of that. I would diagram it out during the day. I would listen back to what had just transpired the night before.
So when you say you diagrammed it out, like you got a piece of paper. I
got a blank piece of paper and just not music paper, just blank paper, printer paper, and did slash, just diagramming out measure numbers. So I would do, depending on how many measures are in a particular chorus, I would go 32 measures or 16 measures or 12, and then just figure out what was happening on the first note of the bass at the beginning of every single measure. And then that's an outline, because it's data layering. Whenever you're going into a crossword puzzle, like the New York Times crossword puzzle,
right?
I don't know about anybody else, but I always do the easy words first, and then start getting the more complex questions. So if you can get the baseline, if you can get the root of every single measure first, that's a start. That gives you a basic key center. Then you can go for, okay, what's the third quality? Is it a minor third or is it a major third? Then is it what's going on with the seventh? Is it a dominant seventh? Is it a major seventh? That really matters. And a lot of the time, probably the majority of the time, you're going to go into traditional harmonic functions. 2-5-1, the 2 is going to be a minor. The 5 is 5-7 with no alterations in traditional jazz. However, there are many, many times, nevertheless, where things are different, and you're going to need to figure out exactly what's going on. Instead of the 5 chord, are we going into a tritone sub? And be able to diagram that out and write it down. But more importantly, you need to be able to figure that out in your head, because curiosity, that level of obsessive compulsive curiosity, is much more important than talent. Talent is a dangerous thing.
Mm-hmm. When so how many hours? So the gig paid enough that you didn't have to do anything during the day. You could devote a bunch, because this doesn't sound like this sounds like a long process for one tune, and you're doing this for multiple tunes. So how many hours a day are you doing this?
All day long. All day. I would go out and I would eat and go back to my apartment in the French Quarter. I had a place on Conti Street. It was an apartment on the second and third floor with a spiral staircase. And had I been a normal person, I would have gotten out and enjoyed being in New Orleans and enjoyed my life. But no.
You wouldn't be employed right now either, probably.
Well, that's probably true. So I would just do that all day long and then go back and just try it again the next night. And every single night I was encouraged because I got a little bit better every night. Not by leaps and bounds, but at least I knew what was happening harmonically. If you stopped a particular tune on the seventh measure of the bridge, and you could say, okay, that's a G half diminished going to a C7 flat 9, and then you're going to go into F major 9 because there's a 9 in the melody. If you're able to do that, you're on the right track. But you need to be able to do that.
And does that this all of these are going to sound like stupid questions from me, but is that the path that you, whenever you're teaching someone jazz, is this what you tell them to go do, this same thing
yes.
that you did?
Yes. Again, but look at the big picture and then get more detailed. Look at the big picture. Learn the melody. Make sure you know what the key is. Learn the words. And again, the world around us has many, many opportunities for this sort of harmonic analysis, this sort of ear training. If you're going into an elevator, you can listen and start doing real-time ear training with your virtual instrument in your hand. And again, Lance, you have great bullet points on your website. A lot of practicing can be done away from the horn. Mm-hmm. A lot of ear training can be done away from the horn. Mm-hmm. And it's the same sort of deal. You want the world to become your practice room.
Right. So what kind of feedback are you getting from these old-timers who are about our age now, which is hilarious?
Most of them were very supportive. A couple of them were not so, but that also toughens you up. You learn to become more callous and not quite as sensitive. And my dad offered some really good advice one time. And you'll need to bleep this out probably. But I called him and I said, this guy in the band, he's giving me trouble. I don't know how to handle it, but I just don't know what to do. It's really kind of getting me down. And my dad said, he's just jealous. Tell him to kiss your ass. well,
that was innocuous.
Yeah. No, I didn't really believe that, but what it did do was just give me the fortitude just to keep going. Mm-hmm. Sometimes dads just tell it like it is.
Well, that's it. I can testify that I try to, and I suspect you do as well, Mr. Waters. And
yes,
it's in your future. There's no reasoning with a 2-year-old, so you're just holding on for dear life at this point.
Speaking of which, Harry, that's why I was just silent for like 10 minutes, was because for the first time in 65 or so episodes of the 2 podcasts, I just had a child emergency in the middle of the podcast. So, Harry,
I understand.
Harry, you were fascinating.
How long?
I understand.
I didn't. Here's how our lives are different, and here's what you have to look forward to, Andrea. You ready?
Oh, goody.
Oh, boy.
We record these all batched together on a Saturday. No, it's funny. And I hadn't heard from my son, who's 14, and he's in the next room over. And in between the second podcast, we talked to Tage Larson, and before we are talking to you, Harry, I go check on him, make sure everything's okay. And he's got his phone up. He's watching YouTube videos, and he's teaching himself how to do card tricks and coin tricks and pencil tricks.
That's awesome.
You know what? I was super excited. I went and got. He was trying to use a penny to roll a coin on his fingers. I have a jar of coins from our travels here and there and everywhere. So I got him the right size coin. I found him a basket to throw the cards into. I'm contributing to his delinquency. So I couldn't have been. I was so proud to see that's how he was spending his time.
That's great.
The fruit doesn't fall far from the tree.
Amen to that.
That's awesome.
He just called your kid a fruit.
Yeah. So, Harry, how long are you in that incubator? How long are you Well, first of all, how long were you playing with the band, and then how long were you doing that sort of intensive study or training?
Well, actually, that started pretty much the way I approach almost everything. I was in that situation for 4 years, and during the day, I worked on my master's at the University of New Orleans, and was fortunate enough to have served as the graduate assistant for Ellis Marsalis.
Wow!
So it was a strange double life, playing with the Dukes of Dixieland at night with all the craziness that came along with that, and then running the jazz ensemble and teaching classes and studying at the University of New Orleans during the day. So it was really a good dichotomy there. Kept me sane. But after 4 years of doing that, the owner of the group, he's a lawyer by the name of John Shoup, and we're friends actually now. I was kind of mad at him for a while, but he came down where he had his manager come down, and she fired the entire band pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe a couple of guys were left, but they wanted to go in a completely different direction. And so I stepped back, and the next morning, I didn't go out partying with some of my friends that night. I figured it was probably a good idea just to practice, focus on chops, and I think it was pentatonic scales that night. I'm very serious. And the next morning, I called my folks, my friends at Disney, and I said, "Do you guys need a trombone player?" And they said, "Yeah, come on down." And not too long after that, they put me to work at the Yacht Club, Yacht and Beach Resort, playing melodies for, who would think, melodies on trombone in the Yacht Club Jazz Quartet. So it was trombone, drums with brushes with a strap, no drum set, acoustic guitar, and acoustic bass.
When you say melodies, do you mean like Row Shoes?
Yeah, right. like Slow Boat to China, like Undecided, Embraceable You. Many, many melodies and tunes that were not done with the Dukes of Dixieland. Some were, but even if there were, I wasn't familiar with the melodies. I was approaching it strictly from a harmonic perspective. So this forced me to go even broader and making sure that I could nail the harmonies, the style, the rhythm, but also have the melody in mind and be able to embellish that. Because in the end, there's nothing wrong with playing the melody when you're improvising, embellishing the melody. So the guys in that particular group would send me out on assignments. Don Mopsick, the upright bass player who played many years later with Jim Cullum on his Jazz at the Landing series on PRI. He said, "Okay, we're going to do Slow Boat to China now on this next set, so you need to learn the melody now." So I'd run out under a palm tree at Disney World and just practice melodies in a panic. And there was definitely a sense of urgency, a sense of relaxed panic, if there is such a thing. But I knew that I was going to be put to the test within minutes, and I am so grateful to have been put on the spot by that. A series of opportunities of baptism by fire, and you guys have been there yourselves. I mean, playing with Boston Brass and soloists and clinicians, you're held to account, and you need to go out and produce. And that is a great thing to have to do.
How long did you do the Disney thing?
I was at Disney for 2 years, and then went out to Las Vegas.
And did what? I have no idea.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I thought I knew you. So far, I've heard nothing that I was familiar with.
Who is this?
Yeah, really. It's the third Waters brother.
So Vegas, you go out to Vegas. What late? Where are we now? Early 90s?
Yes, early 90s. Go out to Vegas, and I was there for a full year, playing at Main Street Station Hotel and Casino with a piano player. The piano player who brought me out. Very, very flamboyant showman, a tremendous pianist as far as technician, Mickey Finn. He brought me out with a whole bunch of other guys, and and we played out there 7 days a week. We did double shifts, afternoons and evenings. The afternoons, I did a lot of the leading of the afternoon band, and then I was a band member for the Mickey Finn show at night. And he was there for a few months, but the band itself continued for the rest of the year. And I'll tell you, that was a really good exercise in in time management, because we were playing so much. The horns were to our face. But we still had to warm down and make sure that we were doing things smartly, just from a brass player's perspective. So I would do long, slow warm-ups and long, slow warm-downs in back of the slot machines every day. But after a year of that, the pit boss came up to the band, and he was normally a very calm gentleman.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I probably told you guys this story, but he said... So. He had this nervous tick, and he got the band together, and he said, guys, the feds are about to raid the casino. You have 15 minutes to get your stuff and get out of the building.
Whoa. What? No, you have definitely not shared that story with us.
So we get all our stuff. We go home. We turn on the television. And sure enough, it looked like the Untouchables. Elliot Ness and his henchmen were walking in.
Wow.
They boarded up the casino, and my roommate and I look at each other, and he's a drummer, Dave Post, great drummer, and he decided that night to go to the Strip and play poker all night. And I thought, well, I could do that, or I could just practice row shoes. So I just sat and practiced row shoes all night. And
both of them are a gamble. Thank you very much.
And the next morning, because I was reasonably well rested and had a good practice session, and you guys can attest to all this. Nothing makes you feel good like a good practice session. I called some friends of mine in Laughlin, Nevada, and had them on the phone, a landline phone, of course, because there were no cell phones back then to speak of, except for the big bricks. And I got a hold of a rock band, Then and Now. Joni Pettiani was her name, and her brother. And I said, you guys need a trombone player? And they had been following all the things that had happened in Vegas the day before. And there was all this laughter on the other end. Yeah, we know what happened up there. Come on down here. We'll put you to work at the Colorado Bell. You can play with us. But remember, Harry, they said, this pays in cash. It's not a real job. And you're going to be playing, again, 7 nights a week like you were doing at Main Street Station. And we don't even have a room for you. You're going to have to sleep on the band room floor in the hotel. I said, fine. I'll be there in 2 hours. So I get all of my clothes, and hardly any of them had been cleaned. I didn't get a chance to do any laundry, and I throw them all in my in giant garbage bags, and go out to the car and throw the garbage bags in the back of the car. A 1980 Cutlass Sierra that I purchased from my dad for $500.
This is an awesome story.
Oh yeah, so I end up in Laughlin, Nevada. We play that first night, and it's near Needles, California, which is probably the hottest place on planet Earth. It gets up to 126 on a regular basis, and this was in the summertime. So after that first night, I sleep on the band room floor, and I wake up and walk out to the door, and decide that I'm going to go get myself an Egg McMuffin. I open the door. This blast of hot air comes in. It basically singes off my eyebrows. And I walk out, not completely upright because I'd slept on the floor. I go out to the Cutlass Sierra, look in the back of the car, and the garbage bags had completely melted into all my clothes.
Oh, saw that coming.
Oh, yeah. So I'm basically there, homeless, without a real job and no clothes. So what do you do in that kind of situation?
Practice.
You go and practice, darn right.
That's not what I do. I just knew what you were going to say.
So, we're a product of our experiences. We're a product of our environment and our friends and family, the folks who love us. And it's all worked out, but it's been a crazy, crazy journey. But practicing has been one of the key components of keeping it all together.
So sorry, before we go down that road, so all right, you're homeless in Laughlin with no clothes, like you can't, and now you live in a nice house in Fairfax County with a gig and a wife and kids, but there's a few steps along the way there. So like where you can't just leave us hanging, and then we lived happily ever after.
What happened? Then I won the lottery.
Well, oh,
yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, sure you did.
If you won the lottery, we wouldn't be talking to you right now.
Yeah, exactly.
actually during that practice session, I came to the realization after talking to my mom and dad. I said, I really think I should go back to grad school. And they said, we concur. Your current life is not acceptable. We would encourage you to become an upstanding citizen. So went back to grad school, started on my doctorate at LSU, and got the residency out of the way for that. I never finished, but during that year, Scott Shelsta of the United States Army Concert Band came down to Baton Rouge. An outstanding trombone soloist in the style of Arthur Pryor, very well known and a true gentleman. I got a lesson with him, and during that lesson, he said, Harry, there's going to be an opening in the ceremonial band coming up, and you should take the audition. And I did, but there was a lot of preparation going up for that too. I mean, Lance, you know what's involved in that, and Andrew, I know you've done a lot of auditions.
I've heard about
it. Yes.
I can spell audition.
So that next summer, I just practiced and got a hold of every single excerpt possible, because it was essentially an orchestral audition, doing all the excerpts, Bolero, Ride, Tannhäuser. And at night, I did play with Mickey Finn in Reno. He brought me out for another job in Reno for that summer. And during the day, I would practice at the University of Nevada in Reno. And I was able to get 24 hours off from the Mickey Finn show to fly back into D.C. and audition for this. But let me tell you something, guys. The only reason that I was successful in that audition was because I cheated.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
Do tell.
I'm ready.
Well, I get there the night before. I get past the guard, and I try and get.
The way you say that.
What do you get? What did you? Did you hop over the wall from the cemetery? Like what?
Well, no. Well, I went in the traditional way, but then I went to the band building just to do some warming up, and the doors were all locked. But there was one door in the very back. This is again in the early '90s. You couldn't do this now, but I was able to get in the band building around 10 o'clock at night, and had my trombone with me and my suitcase. And I start poking around. I was thinking, if I was going to hold an audition, where would I hold it? I went into the minor studio, went into the major studio, and discovered screens, carpet, and conference tables and chairs. And a light went off. Aha! This is where it's going to happen tomorrow. So if I have any sense right now, what I'm going to do is spend the next 3 hours running excerpts. So I open up the suitcase, put on my suit for the next morning.
Simulated it, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And just walk out. And I ran it under every single scenario I could in my mind. I gamed every single one. Okay, I'm going to run all the excerpts this time, imagining that it's cold. Now I'm going to run all the excerpts, imagining that it's hot, and there are a lot of distractions. People are eating, and rappers are going, that sort of thing. And just did every single thing. And it took about 3 hours to run all this. And then went back to that silly Days Inn across the way that you guys know about, and slept for a couple hours and got up and did the audition. But the next morning, there were tremendously talented guys there, tremendously talented. They had chops for days, and we were in the warm-up area, and I think they were trying to vibe each other out. They were playing really high, really low, really fast. They were acting like trumpet players. So I was thinking, I could try and out-vibe these cats, or I could just sequester myself and go and think about what happened the previous night. So I went into the one of the practice rooms down the hall and closed the door, closed my eyes, and just took deep breaths and thought to myself, all right, just go back to the previous evening. You can play all this. It's going to be very, very calm, and you're going to recreate what you did a few hours prior. And at that point, I was in such a trance, there could have been a nuclear explosion outside the band building, and I wouldn't have known about it.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then there was a knock on the door.
Oh, yeah, go.
And they said, okay, come in and play. And that first round went very, very well. But I had to recreate that same scenario throughout the day because there were several rounds. And then that's where mental toughness comes in, folks. Because you have to be tougher than everyone else just to see it through. So that was a very unusual day.
That's pretty fascinating that you broke. And knowing you, it's not. Well, there's a pattern so far here, right? Where like everybody in the band gets fired, and you could have done what Lance and I would have done, which is go on a bender, and instead you practiced, and then and then Elliot Ness invades your casino, and and boards it up, and you could have done what Lance and I would have done, which is go lose all your money playing poker for the night, and you went and practiced, and also you called Disney immediately, and then you called, and you even knew who you needed to call, and then the Army band thing is up, and ceremonial band, and then you break in and you find the room, and you are doing mental, and you even put the suit on. I mean, to someone that doesn't understand the value of all of that, that sounds completely insane. But like, you did it. You've got the tie on. You got, I mean, the whole thing. It's like that's awesome. You're like I said, you're a what did I call him? A whack job, or what was the opening line? I don't even nut job, I think was what I said. So what is it about your personality that you think made you immediately, when you faced all these crises, is that the right word? When you faced these crises, made you take action? I mean, even like the same night you took action in places like New Orleans and Las Vegas. That's not exactly like Muncie, Indiana. It's like those are places where you can just it's easy to not take action when you get bad news. So what is it about your personality that made you immediately try and figure out what the next thing was?
Obsessive compulsive disorder and fear.
That was succinct and honest.
Very succinct. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, that's the most succinct thing that Harry Waters has ever said. I'm a little disarmed.
I think anybody who achieves a certain level of success, especially in this area, but there is a bit of OCD in all of us, right? I mean, the the drive to sit in a small room by yourself and do the same thing over and over again has a number of diagnoses attached to it. But it's also what you need to have in order to get to where you need to go.
Well, and I think you're right. Everyone with whom we associate who does this for a living, in order to be able to do this for a living, you have to have that capability. But it's also important to be able to practice anywhere. I'm a huge advocate for not practicing in the same location. You want to get into a routine, of course, a practice routine, but you don't want to get into a rut. So as much as you can have your toys, have the things that you need to practice in your case. So if you're driving by National Airport, I do this all the time. If the weather's good, I keep a folding chair in the back of my car. There's this place called Gravelly Point. You guys know where that is. And it's where the planes land, and they land right over you. I'll just go and put my chair right under the airplanes and just practice scales as they're landing. And it's a whole different way to hear yourself, and plus you're inspired by your surroundings. So that's one great place to practice in our area. But in the mountains.
What's in your kit? You got a chair, obviously. You got a trombone. What's the rest of the kit?
I have. Let me show you. Hold on.
Anytime.
You know what? Tonight I'm going to break into Brucker Hall, I think, on Fort Myron practice.
I think you should. Yeah. I think you should. Let's see. Where is my tuner?
Okay.
Harry's about to show us stuff on this audio podcast.
All right. Where is my tuner? I hope I. Let's see. Well, anyway, I have a clip-on tuner, of course. The Korg, I believe it's the N222 clip-on tuner, and then there's the tuner / metronome, which is that wedge, and you can get both of those things in the in the case pretty easily. Plus, you need a recorder, or you could use your phone, your iPhone, and just put it on voice memos, as long as the phone is in airplane mode. Because you don't want your phone on. Everyone needs to turn their phone off. The smartphones are great, but they need to be used for good rather than evil.
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 Yeah.
Distractions.
I mean, it's just terrible. As adults, there have been studies that say we can't go 2 minutes without checking our cell phones. 2 minutes. And if we can't go 2 minits without checking, what about our students?
Right.
I went 2 minutes a couple of times yesterday.
This is something to be proud of.
Yeah.
Wow.
I missed what you guys said. I got a text. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, but when you're practicing and you hear that zzz, zzz, you're going to look. You're going to look. So just don't even bring it out. Don't even have that as a temptation. So those are the only things, really a way to record yourself, a tuner that clips onto the bell, and a tuner / metronome, so you can have a drone going with the pulse. And then while that's happening, just work on perfect intervals. While the drone's going. And then record yourself doing that and make sure that you're locking in as fast as possible and getting the vibrations out. And, giving yourself an autopsy. Because what we all want to do is become our own best teachers.
So you go and play with drones. You play with drones in the flight paths of landing airplanes. Seems safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're on the FAA watch list.
That's one of many, I think.
How many gigs do you think you've played, Harry Waters?
Oh, God.
I mean, let's say we could probably get it's got to be thousands, right?
Many, many thousands. I mean, the same with you. In New Orleans alone, 6 nights a week. And in Vegas, 14 a week. Mm-hmm. For years and years and years. It's just insane.
I read this great, it was a memoir that Jerry Lewis wrote. I think it was called Dean and Me or something like that. And he was talking about when those two were starting out, how they met, and then when they went to Vegas, and they were doing like 12 shows a day. They would start at like 3 in the afternoon, and then they would go till like 5, 6 in the morning, and then they would crash for about 4 hours. They would do it again, and like just show after show after show after show.
Wow.
And I guess where I was going with the Dukes thing is it seems like for people, and people talk about the 10,000 hours thing, and then other people blow up the 10,000 hours theory, but many of the highest performers that I've had the opportunity to sit down and talk to about this, there's been some sort of incubation period where they just picked it apart, and there was like an intensive either several months or a few years where it was just the self-autopsy thing was really powerful imagery, where you just take the entire Lego kit apart and you look at every Lego and you reassemble it. And it sounds like that's what you had. Did you think of it, or did you realize that was what was going on at the time, or it's just sort of life at that point?
No, it was like, oh crap, I got to get this together. This has to be done. The only way to do it is just to step back, look at the whole thing, and then get right back into it. And you learn to do that by many, many hours, late night hours too. At North Texas, going way back to North Texas, I went down to the student employment office, and they hired me, the School of Music hired me to close up the band building every night, close up the music building. Well, that was their first mistake. They shouldn't have done that, because if I had the keys to the music building, I could practice all night.
That's right.
And I let my friends in too. I would lock up, but I would make sure that my peeps were in there, and we would just slam it all night long. Mm-hmm. We'd get together and practice on our own, and then we'd get everyone together and do duets, and then we'd leave in the wee small hours of the morning. But having access to a facility like that and just was gold.
Exact same story that Lance said.
No one else around.
Oh.
Really? Did you lock up the music building too?
No, I had the keys to the when I was at Akron. I had the keys to the band director's offices.
Awesome.
So the one guy had a great setup everything was, I'm your age, so we had albums, and then I would dub them to, like, he had all these military band albums. I would dub them to cassette so that on my Walkman back and forth to my apartment, and I could listen to them in both directions, hear all the lit that I needed to hear, and I just bounced between those rooms. And I still remember, and I have no idea where, I don't know her name, I don't know anything about her. There was one other woman, student, who at the time working as I was in the building, at least on that floor. There could have been others in other parts of the building, but I remember I'd see her. It was way out the other end, and then it's like.
Okay, so we are back. Skype is being very, very, very problematic to us. Thank you, Microsoft. Microsoft. I came to scoff, and anyway. So we are back, but we are going to skip right to asking Harry about our dear mutual friend Jens Lindemann. Harry, do you have any advice for Jens and the horrifically public chop problems that he's been going through of late?
Yes, I actually would advise him to at least try the jet tone mouthpiece. I think it's really going to open up the lower register.
The jet tone mouthpiece, of course. That's I don't know why no one's thought of that. For the low register.
For the lower register, yes.
That's pretty good, man. That's pretty good. So
Godspeed, Jens. Godspeed.
Yeah, so you've got a new album out.
I sure do.
Yeah.
With the great Patrick Sheridan and the Salt River Brass, the Great American Songbook. It's out on Soundset Recordings. You can get it from soundset.com. Here's some of the tunes. You Be So Nice to Come Home To, All of Me, And So It Goes by Billy Joel, Nice to Meet You by John Clayton, Our Love Is Here to Stay, Lover Man, On the Street Where You Live, Laura, Donna Lee, My Funny Valentine, St. Louis Blues, arranged by Wycliffe Gordon, Angel Eyes, and Happy. And I tell you, the band plays so incredibly well, and Patrick was amazing throughout the entire process. Clark Rigsby, lead recording engineer, who also has recorded with Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder,
Boston Brass.
Legend. Boston Brass. It was such a pleasure. So we encourage you to check it out.
That was the first and last time that our group will be mentioned in the same breath as Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder. So there you go. All right. And it was me who did it. That was awesome. That album is fantastic. Everybody should go pick it up, and don't just go look if you support these artists, you should maybe buy it. So that's a good listen for all of us, including me. So see, there's children in the background. They don't feed themselves. I've learned this already. So cool. Harry,
anything else you want to push or plug, Harry?
No, just I want to convey again how honored I am to be on your show today, and I salute what you guys are doing. It's really, really inspiring. So thank you.
Yeah, of course, it's our pleasure. So, we have not deleted the Steam Room episode yet that never aired. So we might end up releasing it because it's hilarious. We might end up releasing it as bonus material to our Patreon patrons, which
great idea.
Yeah, which we very much appreciate them. So, which is
absolutely,
which is great. So it helps us with the ongoing costs of hosting and producing and all that stuff. So, all right.
I think it would be a good party tape. Yes.
Harry Waters, the lost episode. I like it. So,
oh God.
All right. So, man, we learned that you were homeless in Laughlin, and that that you worked at Disney World, and there's a bunch of stuff that we didn't know. So, I'm sure everybody else found that pretty fascinating story as well. So, all right. I actually meant that as sincere, and it probably sounded sarcastic. That's a gift I have, that it just comes out that way. So, but this was great. This is great. Thank you so much, Harry. And
thank you, gentlemen.
Anything else, Lance?
No.
I think that'll do it. So, all right. Well, before Skype gives us a problem for a third time, we're going to wrap it. Thank you so much to everyone for listening, and that does it for another episode of The Brass Junkies.
You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to help support the podcast in order to make more episodes like this one possible, please visit pedalnotemedia.com/donate for more details. Also, be sure to check out our latest recording, The Brass Recording Project, at brassrecordingproject.com. The Brass Junkies is produced by Austin Boyer and Buddy Deschler of the Fredericksburg Brass Institute. Executive producers are Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.